Hello, everyone. Welcome back again to the Thea Ventures podcast, Unheated. We're really excited here to have Roshan here from AirZyme from Sweden. So, welcome, Roshan. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us today.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So, as a continuation from essentially our Global Founder series, we're looking to dive a little bit deeper into AirZyme and the kind of work you do and your impact on climate change. So, would love to do a little bit of a quick introduction to AirZyme. So, AirZyme is an early stage company based in Sweden, focusing on enhancing carbon capture and removal processes with their proprietary enzymatic biocatalysts. So, they use carbonic anhydrase to accelerate the conversion of CO2 to biocarbonate, and this boosts efficiency and integrates seamlessly with existing infrastructure. So, unlike traditional CCUS methods that are energy intensive and costly, AirZyme's approach is low energy, more efficient, and more scalable. And their goal is to make carbon removal cheaper and widely accessible. And we'll get deeper into their pilots and how they're planning to scale in the future. And a little bit of a little bit of background rather on Roshan. So he is the co-founder and CEO of AirZyme. He's a second-time founder. He comes with 14 years experience in capital markets at Morgan Stanley and Nordea, as well as in crude oil trading and in digitized software solutions at Co-owned. So really excited for this conversation, Roshan. I think it would be wonderful perhaps if we could start off with, maybe you telling us a little bit about AirZyme and the problem that you're solving, specifically how Bio-DAC technology works, or bio-direct air capture,
Yeah,
and what makes it sort of different from traditional DAC methods, and also what aspect of this technology excited you the most and motivated you to start the company.
sure. That was a great intro, by the way. I should use you in the pitch competitions. I couldn't have done it better myself. Uh, but AirZyme, when we were founded 2 years ago, we decided to become a company in the intersect of climate, tech, and material science. That's kind of the skill set that we've been leveraging. We decided to leverage Mother Nature. Mother Nature has been really good at evolving low energy CO2 exchange. In our body right now, there's this enzyme called carbonic anhydrase, which you mentioned, which is helping our body power its own low carbon capture plant because our body is producing CO2 and we need to expel it. So this enzyme is able to convert CO2 to bicarbonate extremely fast, 1 million times per second. So it's basically solving this engineering trade-off we have to be able to have high kinetics CO2 observation versus be able to regenerate it with low energy. So the whole concept is to be able to industrialize this enzyme at scale, make it economically viable, so that different types of carbon capture applications can utilize this as a biocatalyst. So hence the terminology we use or GAC or CCS. That's kind of the way we decided to market our product. So uh, we're trying to basically solve this engineering threshold of uh, increasing CO2 observation and to reduce the energy cost, which is usually from the regeneration cycle. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. It made complete sense. Yes. And how does your team, how is it structured? What kind of capacity do you need? Because this is obviously highly specialized technology. So what kind of, talent did you try and procure to get about starting to build this?
So the founding team is basically myself, which is the non-technical person, trying to kind of bring some smart and talented people within us. So we have a CTO is a process engineer with 15 years of experience on building uh, process technology in the chemical industry, utilizing that. But kind of the main brain is a biotechnician, which has 20 years of experience when it comes to protein engineering. So we're basically working their skill sets in being able to do heavy R&D on the protein enzyme development and able to test that quickly. So we're fine-paced reiteration cycle of developing and testing. Uh, We've also recently brought board material scientists to be able to develop novel materials which we can immobilize. So this is kind of a full stack approach. So the idea is to be able to become a vertically integrated supplier where we develop our biocatalysts, where we develop materials where we can immobilize a biocatalyst on, developing mediums which can absorb and release CO2 with the use of our biocatalyst. Depending on what equipment we're using. So we have the traditional wet lab where we can develop and test, and where we can ferment protein. So at the same time, we have this kind of garage-like setup when we're doing high pressure tests now. So we built the high pressure vessels to be able to replicate both point source and systems.
Okay, wonderful. So just to understand the revenue model slightly, because a lot of our listeners are based in India, and direct air capture is a very new technology.
Mm-hmm.
So in carbon removal and CDR, what we usually see in India is a lot of nature-based solutions. And India, given that it's a very large agricultural landmass, as well as large forestry locations as well. So lots of opportunity for nature-based sinks for carbon. But carbon CCUS and DAC are very new. So I was just curious to understand, from your position in Sweden, how does the customer side of things and the demand side work? What are the kinds of I would say elements that they're looking for, and what sectors of clients are you looking to tap into?
Sure. So from our point of view now, we see ourselves more as a technology supplier. So our customers are DEX operators or DAC operators, where we can sell the tech stack to them. So to some extent, we are quite lucky that we don't have to compete in the voluntary or mandatory credit market, because we're suppliers to someone that's actually removing the CO2 for us. But in Sweden, for instance, has made great strides in the bio-CCS, where I think last year the government announced a reverse auction. It was 7.2 billion Swedish crowns. Don't quote me on that number because I don't recall correctly. But these are kind of the schematics that needs to be in place for companies to be able to invest in large infrastructure projects, because the voluntary market will only take us so far. I think it's very important that the government is here and be that backstop for these credits.
Okay, interesting. And there are plenty of other, let's say oil companies or other types of sectors that are, there's Saudi Aramco, there's, various different oil companies like BP, Shell. How are they thinking about BECCS in particular? So bioenergy and within carbon capture, are they familiar with the technology? Do they ask you a lot on the technical side? I know that you're supplying the technology, so yeah.
Sure. So the BECCS technology doesn't differ to any other point source carbon capture methodology. It's all about what the input is. So BECCS, bio-CCS, is when you are using nature-based products. So anything that's been grown, be it wood chips or whatever, you burn it, incinerate it, and you capture the CO2 from that process. So you're actually receiving a negative carbon. You're creating carbon removal, you're burning the CO2 in the ground. The tech stack that is used for bio-CCS is like any point source carbon capture facility. So it's usually a solvent-based system, which is using either amine-based or salt-based solvent. This is the technology that oil and gas companies have been using the last 80 years, for instance, to treat the natural gas fields. So you're seeing a lot of legacy EPC companies in the oil and gas sector, which is supplying these technologies to the BECCS operators. So these large American EPC companies or spin-offs from European oil and gas companies are the ones that are supplying this tech stack.
Understood. And it would be wonderful if you could share, a little bit of background about the pilot that you're running with Stockholm Exergi, Capsol, and Swedish Energy Agency, and basically looking at what kind of commercial viability there is in this particular where you want to go next.
Of course. So Stockholm Exergi, which is one of our partners, is in the forefront when it comes to BECCS in Europe, in the world. They announced their facility, which is going to be the largest. I think the capacity is going to be 800,000 tons of removal per year. They're using a tech stack which is called HPC, potassium carbonate. The tech supply is capsule technologies. Where we come in is we believe that our biocatalyst can improve the performance of their process because potassium carbonate is technology which has some limitations when it comes to the kinetics. How quickly it can absorb the CO2. And this is where our product shines, able to improve the capacity of the HPC. And the pilot is very simple. It's together with which is funded by the Swedish Energy Agency. It's 2 years. For the first year, is us where we're doing R&D to specifically develop a biocatalyst for the process. During 2026, we will be testing our enzymes at the pilot facility in Stockholm, in Veckaverket. So, and this is a connection with so Stockholm actually funded by the Swedish Energy Agency. It's a 2-year pilot scheme. We're extremely grateful to be able to kind of work with the leaders both on the technology side and operational side when it comes to bio-CCS. So it's a very proud moment for us, and we're extremely happy to be working with the people there.
Great. And specifically on, making it more widespread. So let's say you had 3 or 4 or 5 of these pilot projects that were running. What kind of partners would you be looking at beyond Stockholm, Exergy, et cetera? Which markets would you be considering?
Sure. So when it comes to BECCS, we're seeing a lot of district heating plants setting these up because it's on the know-how. If you're a district heating plant and you're burning biogenic fuel or biogenic source materials, you store it, it becomes next. So for us, it becomes natural to partner up both with the technology providers, which would be Capsule Technologies or another EPC company, but also the operator which is building this facility. So Stockholm Exergy isn't the only one building a BECCS facility in Sweden. We see projects from many municipalities now popping up. So the idea would be for us to start with spearhead with Stockholm Exergy and then be able to convince other operators as well the benefits of our product.
Interesting. And, for this to be, considered to be quite widespread, do you think that this could eventually displace the regular DAC and CCUS technologies? Or are you kind of considering what kind of market share would solution, or at least these kinds of solutions have, and how would it make up the entire CCUS market?
So there's no silver bullet to kind of fix. There's no silver bullet in this portfolio. There's going to be many different solutions. We're seeing a lot of innovation in the DAC space on the electrochemical side, on the sorbent side, on the membrane side. The same thing in point source carbon capture. Many interesting technologies that are being developed. We are supplying to one part of it. Something still is HPC to get what the makes as the best solution given the circumstances. In other places, it might be not. So it's not a winner-take-it-all situation. We're extremely happy that a lot of different technologies are popping up in the market, and we're looking at them with great interest. But basically, any solution which has some sort of solvent component to it then can be a viable add-on. But no, some of the new solutions that are popping up. So just amazing work from everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you heard of any interesting byproducts that are created from just from the enzymes? I mean, obviously air capture is one of them, but we've actually come across a few companies that are also developing green hydrogen, for example, and in a membraneless electrolyzer format, and potentially also using the sorbents as well. So curious to understand and also, sustainable air fuels is another big source of this as well. So I was wondering if you have seen these kind of additional outputs being generated, and what was the feasibility of linking those to your solution?
Sure. This is something that we really are also looking at with customers and partners. the holy grail is to be able to utilize CO2 to something more efficient, cost efficient, in a cost efficient process. Uh, for us, kind of the main route is being able to additional enzymes to create an enzyme cascade where we're rising CO2 from a high value product. So it could be the current enzyme we're working on now and adding one or two other enzymes to be able to turn CO2 to bicarbonate, from bicarbonate to, for instance, formic acid, and from formic acid to methanol. But at the moment, we're taking one at a time. So this is something late stage. There's a lot of interesting projects that have been funded by Horizon in Europe with regards to CO2 valorization. So I think there are a lot of great minds kind of pushing their heads together now, trying to find ways, either be it through electrochemistry or through enzymes or through conventional.
Interesting. And when you look at the entire, this is zooming out a little bit, climate as a whole, obviously multiple different sectors, interdisciplinary. What made you choose this particular type of technology to jump into as opposed to multiple other areas within climate? I know this is a very broad question, but as a fund, yeah, I mean, we look at multiple sectors such as energy generation, mobility, agriculture, circular economy, industrial decarbonization. So I'm curious why CDR was one of the areas. Is it because of the volume of, shift that you could see in actual carbon emission removal and reduction, as opposed to other, more tangential solutions?
Sure. When we sat down, the founding team, and decided on what project we were going to do next, there was one, you want to address the problem you're passionate about, and two, you want to see if you actually can solve the problem. Right? Only passion will take you so far. And we kind of sat down and said, what are our skill sets? How can we apply them to address the problem? The way the team worked in the past, we all knew each other from different projects, and we knew I knew how amazing co-founders were at the things that they were doing. And I was wondering if we can bring them together, can we actually make a dent to this problem? Do we have a solution that we can offer which makes sense? At the same time, tackling a problem that we actually really care about. And when push comes to shove, we realized that there's this enzyme that's called anhydrase, which we think is extremely, using a cheesy word, we thought it was so cool that it's working the way it does. We fell in love with it. We said, hey, let's see if we can do something about it. This is their market for it. You start working on it, you're reading, you're doing tests, then eventually you're getting a feedback loop from the market, from technology providers, from the voluntary markets, etc. And then you can put all that together and you decide to run on it. I guess we wouldn't have done it if we didn't receive the amazing backing we received from the soft funding that we managed to get. So I guess it's mixed a little bit of everything.
Got it. Got it. And, curious because you did a lot of these market acceptance, I would say interviews with customers and things like that to find out whether your solution would really fit their pain points and their needs. And that's something really important in any founder journey. So, when we are looking at, because we back founders really early in their journey of pre-seed and seed, and we're really interested in, obviously the technology has to be unique and differentiated, but they really have to do their work to speak to customers, work backwards and design something that customers are actually going to buy. So, when you were talking to these customers and technology suppliers, as you mentioned, what were some of their pain points that you thought immediately your solution would be the best fit, and that hadn't been done before?
So the pain point that the major pain point when it comes to carbon capture, which we all struggle with, is the energy demand. That's kind of the overall holistic picture. But when we started, I knew about different types of carbon capture technologies from previous work, but it was very gone. When we started this journey, I basically found this research paper on all the point source carbon capture technology providers were available, and I just started calling them one by one. It was a very low tech, low efficient way of doing it, but we learned a lot. I think I managed to embarrass myself to some of these phone calls, good and the of my technical knowledge at the time, but I was extremely valuable. So I think we spoke to maybe the top 20 technology providers when it comes to different types of point source applications. Some of them thought our idea was completely stupid. There was lightly interested, some were really interested. We kind of took all of that together and actually incorporated all of their inputs because it's easy to preach to the choir, but the one that hated our product the most gave us the most valuable input in how we are kind of pushing our R&D. And eventually, I'm not going to call myself an industry expert, but eventually, after a while, you kind of possess the knowledge to be able to kind of tweak and improve the feedback loop you have of your product vis-a-vis the market. So that was kind of the journey we went through. So you have to be kind of lower your ego, but be rude at the same time because you're kind of taking people's time when you're calling them or asking more questions. So it was back to school. It was a very helpful kind of trip.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's an important part of any founder's journey, to be honest, is to do that recce and find out. And I found it really interesting when you said that the folks that didn't like your product at all, those are the ones that gave you the most valuable, feedback and basically constructive notes of where to actually improve. And so when you think about things like voluntary markets and, the ability to be able to sell this at scale, many countries, so we're obviously based in India, the voluntary markets still haven't taken off in a big way here. Where do you think, the next big growth is going to come from when you look at, bioenergy capture in globally? And obviously the US is taking a different climate trajectory maybe at the moment, but there are so many other captive markets and customers that you could look at on other locations. So curious to understand your thought process on that.
Sure. So we have a world of different tech stacks, be it point source, be it their capture, be it nature-based solutions. And the ultimate goal is to be able to remove CO2 from the atmosphere. But removing CO2 from the atmosphere, the concept, like if it's kind of the classical tragedy of the commons, right? Everybody benefits from removing CO2, but nobody is willing to pay for it. When nobody's willing to pay for it, you don't have a natural market mechanism. There's no natural supply and demand. Voluntary companies buying CO2 credits, where do you put it on your balance sheet? What is it? Is it an asset or actually? The voluntary market can only take us so far. If you look at history, when you have large infrastructure projects that come out of necessity, it's always government. So in 1973, when we had oil crisis, countries like the US, France, and Sweden rushed to build out their nuclear infrastructure to be able to supply the countries with reliable and cheap electricity. This wouldn't have come from a voluntary or free market, these huge infrastructure investments. It was government funded, it was government backed. The government backing provided stability, provided visibility for private entities that participated in this. So I think one needs to come back to this and say that the voluntary market won't take us far. We need some sort of institutional framework where countries are aligned, where we can have visibility for these credits that private companies are generating. I'm not saying that it's supposed to be that the government should build this. So I believe in the free market, but there needs to be some sort of incentive that is aligned with the product that we're trying to deliver. And where this will come from? Well, Europe has the most low-hanging fruit at the moment. The US as well. Let's see how the political landscape has evolved over there. But then coming back to countries like India or China, carbon removal is important, but carbon removal shouldn't be the focus if 50% or more of your electricity is coming from coal plants, right? Then you should reduce. Then fill up with the last puzzle piece, which is that's my long rant on that topic.
Got it. No, I fully appreciate that. I think there are plenty of regimes that are a lot, supportive, and then obviously the biggest ticket size of that capital comes from government and infrastructure to basically set that main precedent for then the private sector to come in afterwards. So yeah, that's super interesting. And as you think about, the next, say, 5 to 10 years for AirZyme, where would you like to see the company going? Which trajectory? And then also in terms of, the other players that are in the market, how do you kind of see yourselves working together with them that are doing similar work? Or is there always going to be a thin line of separation? I'd love to hear a bit more on that.
Yeah, so 5 to 10 years from now, the idea is for us to be the main supplier of solutions leveraged industrial carbon technologies. So be it supplying catalysts to a BECS operator, or be able to deliver a catalyst which is immobilized on a membrane for a DAC company. So we want to be kind of the go-to choice of supplying off-the-shelf products, like performing customized R&D to be able to improve other people's needs. And I'm like the pick and shovel provider of these products for this whole landscape. And to do that, it means that we need to have good cooperation with all of these companies. And at the moment, when we go to conferences or events or meet companies, it's a very friendly atmosphere. Everybody has a main goal. People are working together. Folks are very helpful, which is good. I'm a bit afraid though, once some of these projects come down the line, and then because this is going to be commoditized very quickly, because we're going to have like a mini industrial revolution. A lot of that companies are going to come online. A lot of them might hit the $100 target. Then who will be all the friendliness might disappear quite quickly when everybody's chasing the voluntary credits that are available to sell vis-a-vis the volumes that are sponsor collecting. So I hope this camaraderie at least will be around for a little longer until this happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting. And from the funding landscape, right, as you think about your journey and the kind of types of investors that you want on your cap table, what are you kind of looking for as a main characteristic? Climate specific or larger, more sector agnostic? Are you looking for strategics, maybe corporate venture capital players? What would be your ideal mix?
So for us, up until now, we didn't been way less, not taking any equity capital. So we've been funded from government grants and foundations. So quick shout out to the Swedish Energy Agency, the Swedish Innovation Agency, Vinnova, Remove and Carbon Fix, which have been very helpful, alleviate the pressure from private investors during our R&D cycle. When it comes to investors, climate tech focused CV makes obvious sense because they understand our product and the problem we're trying to solve. CVCs are great, but you're saying that the average CVC kind of lasts up to 4 years and then they close shop because the new CEO doesn't like the portfolio or the direction of where the CVC is going. So it's a bit uncertain. But yeah, for me, going forward, I'd like to keep the cap table as small as possible with devoted and passionate investors that have deep technical knowledge and understand the fact that reaching sub 100 per ton target, like what the challenges are, because that figure is everybody likes to use it. It's a gift and a curse. There's not that much that costs below $100 a ton, right? I think like 1 ton of coal costs $120, and somebody's expecting to capture 1 ton of CO2 from the air at that same cost. Sometimes it doesn't add up, and so to be able to investor understands these dynamics, I think it's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I see your point there. And a lot of this, just in investor education on a rapidly changing, climate horizon around voluntary compliance markets, et cetera, and how this would perform in comparison to various other types of CDR technologies is useful background. I think I had no more other questions actually, unless you'd like to share any other particular projects or, work that you're pioneering in addition to what we've already discussed.
I guess no. So for us, we will keep the world updated on the progress on our pilots, on the Bio-DAC solution, which we're developing internally. Hopefully, we can also reveal something end of this year. We're basically building a reactor which can capture and release CO2 continuously, really lowering the energy cost. We've had some successful tests, which we're quite happy about. I mentioned that we haven't raised any money up until now, but the idea is to do kind of our first round in spring or autumn this year. So if anybody's listening, feel free to take in that information.
Yes, super. Thank you so much, Roshan. As we come to the end of our conversation, I'm super happy and privileged to have had the chance to discuss this with you and to chat about your journey and AirZyme as a company. And we will certainly pass on any interested listeners who would like to chat with you directly. We'll help put them in touch with you. And we hope to host you in India at some point whenever you decide to come here, expand your operations, look for customers or talent. Very, very happy to be of any help. So thank you once again for taking the time to come and chat with us today in this podcast, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. It was great, and I will definitely take you up on that offer to come to visit you guys in India.
Yes, absolutely. Look forward to it. Thank you. Bye-bye.